Live to Tehran now, and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan arriving in the Iranian capital for talks with leaders there. He'll meet with President Hassan Rouhani, as we mentioned earlier, and he's also going to discuss the ongoing efforts by the Kurdish regional government in Iraq in its continuing push for independence there. Now, we're getting reports that at least 3 Turkish soldiers have been killed and several others injured in a bombing in the southeast of the country. Local media reporting the blast took place in the Yuksekova district in the Hakkari province near the border with Iran. Turkish security officials are blaming the Kurdish Workers' Party, or PKK, for the attack. Now, a draft UN report has added Saudi Arabia to the blacklist for the killing and maiming of children in Yemen. The confidential draft attributed 683 child casualties to the Saudi-led military coalition in 2016, along with dozens of attacks on schools and hospitals. It notes the coalition has put measures in place to improve child protection. The Saudi UN ambassador declined to comment on the report until it is officially released. The UN Human Rights Committee says the abuse of Rohingya women and children in Myanmar could be crimes against humanity. The committee is calling on Myanmar's authorities to stop the violence and allow proper investigations. Over 500,000 Rohingya refugees have fled Myanmar's Rakhine state after targeted violence escalated in late September. The UN has called the exodus the world's fastest developing refugee crisis. Now, there's growing concern over the health of Rohingya living in Bangladesh's makeshift camps. Hundreds of people are sharing single toilets and contaminated water supplies, with health workers fearing a cholera outbreak would easily spread. Tanvir Chowdhury has more from Cox's Bazar.
No word can describe the condition of some of this temporary refugee shelter built in Kutupalong area. Thousands of people concentrated in one area in scorching heat up to 38 degrees. There is very few latrine, raw sewage floating in the drainage. There is no sewage system, no freshwater system. Very few fresh tubers are set up, which is some help. But the international aid agencies are warning there need to be far more number of latrines and freshwater sources in this camp. What one Bangladeshi NGO said that there are 327 persons using one latrine. That's a very dismal condition. Now, we spoke to a lot of the doctors who are running this mobile clinic in different camps. Most of the doctors told us the majority of the patients they're seeing have diarrheal disease, skin infection, and respiratory illness with high fever. Most of the patients are women and children. Now, unless there is a long-term strategy chalked out by the government and international donor agency, there is a clear danger of cholera and dysentery epidemic spreading out in these camps. The International Coordination Group is sending about 1 million oral cholera vaccination pills. That should help the situation to a bit. Now, most of these refugees are not going back very soon. There has to be a long-term strategy. Once the media focus is out of these refugees, there's a clear danger of aid flow into these camps will slow down.
15 Cuban diplomatic staff have been expelled from the U.S. The U.S. says it took the decision after Havana failed to protect its staff from alleged sonic attacks. Cuba's government denies accusations that it was involved and is calling the response from the U.S. reckless and unfounded. Our Latin America editor, Lucia Newman, reports.
Cuba is fuming over Washington's decision to expel 15 more Cuban diplomats for what it calls unfounded charges of mysterious acoustic attacks against U.S. diplomats in Havana.
The foreign ministry energetically protests and denounces this unfounded and unacceptable decision, along with the pretext used to justify it, that the Cuban government has not taken the appropriate measures to prevent these alleged incidents from occurring.
After months of inconclusive investigations, more than 60% of U.S. Embassy staff here is packing up to go home, ordered to leave Cuba to protect their health from possible new sonic attacks that have reportedly seriously damaged the hearing of more than 20 U.S. diplomats since last year. This according to the U.S. State Department. Cuba has repeatedly denied any involvement and says the U.S. is withholding information to help get to the bottom of the reported acoustic attacks. Down the street from the U.S. Embassy, people who say they're desperate to be reunited with their loved ones in the United States sit under the hot sun. uncertain of what to do now that the consulate section is no longer accepting new applications.